Dead Run, a Zombie Uprising Story by M.A. Robbins. Chapter 1. Zeke pushed aside a branch and gazed over the South Anchorage Mall's parking lot. Dozens of fresh zombies stumbled between the abandoned cars and trucks. Josh peeked out next to him. Why don't they leave? Zeke backed through the bushes a few yards and stepped onto a wide dirt trail. Don't know, but there's no way we should try getting by them in the light. Josh dropped his golf club and plopped onto the ground, his substantial gut shaking like jello beneath his Nerds Are Sexy t-shirt. It's summer in Alaska, dude. It's light, like almost all the time. Not around 1 or 2 in the morning, Zeke said. Doesn't get totally dark, but dark enough to give us some cover. Zeke lowered the business end of his golf club next to Josh's. While Josh's driver still shined, Zeke's iron had clumps of flesh and bone stuck to it with dried blood. Josh followed Zeke's gaze to the clubs. You know, this isn't my thing. I fight better behind a game controller or a keyboard. It's okay. You're the kung fu fighter, dude, not me. Zeke scratched the shaved side of his head. It's not kung fu. Besides, I haven't been too good at it. I only went up 1 belt in 2 years. So why keep doing it? Ninjas don't quit, Zeke said. Besides, Sensei started giving me kendo lessons 6 months ago, and I'm really good at it. Kendo? The way of the sword. I've been working with a bakken, a wooden katana. Sensei says I'm a natural, and even ready to compete. A twig snapped down the trail. Josh jumped to his feet, bringing the club with him. What was that? Zeke cocked his head and listened. The sound didn't repeat. Probably nothing. A low growl came from the same direction. Josh jumped into the bushes, and Zeke melted in beside him. He slowed his breathing and choked up his grip on the golf club. Stumbling footsteps thudded closer. While the bushes were too thick to see details, the outline of a human figure worked its way down the trail and closer to their spot. Zeke wrinkled his nose. I'll never get used to their stink. The zombie paused a few feet away, a low rumble radiating from its throat. Zeke gripped his club tighter and readied for an attack. A drop of sweat fell into his eye, causing him to squeeze it shut as it stung. The creatures shambled past their hiding place, and Josh let out a soft whoosh of breath. Zeke licked his lips. He'd seen enough of them to know the creatures were unpredictable in how they moved around. It could easily come back and surprise them. He crept from the bushes, his focus on the zombie, and stepped onto the trail behind it. A bodybuilder in a muscle shirt and ripped jeans. It hadn't detected him. Zeke reared back with his weapon, and the golf club's head bumped into something else. A high-pitched screech went straight through his skull. Shit. He whirled, swinging the club wildly, and struck a bloodied, one-armed old lady in the shoulder, knocking her down. It was enough to stun her, but he still had to kill her before she called out again. On cue, several answering screeches came from farther down the trail and another directly behind him. He smashed the head of the golf club into the old lady's nose, crushing it and driving bone fragments into her brain. He spun and barely had enough time to bring the club up with 2 hands before Muscle Man slammed into him and drove him to the ground. Missing an eye, and with yellowish-black fluid dripping from the empty socket and onto Zeke, it snapped at his neck. Zeke pushed with the club and kept the zombie at bay, but the damn thing had to be 260 pounds or better. Zeke's arms trembled from the strain. A blur flashed in the corner of Zeke's vision, followed by a dull thud. The zombie's one yellow eye rolled up in its head, and it slumped. Zeke's arms gave way at the dead weight, and Muscle Man collapsed onto his chest. Zeke gasped. Get him off. Josh dragged the zombie to the side. That's one for me. Zeke pushed himself to his feet. The screeches drew closer. I can't believe you're keeping score. He grabbed Josh's arm and pulled him into the vegetation. Dude, Josh said, it's like a dungeon game, and I'm the thief. I don't kill much, but I can do a lot of shit to help. Zeke clamped a hand over Josh's mouth. Shush. Another screech sounded only yards away. Footsteps stomped by and disappeared down the trail. Minutes passed. To Josh's credit, he waited for Zeke to speak first. Looks like we're clear. Zeke clapped Josh on the shoulder. Thanks for the help. No offense, dude, but you suck with that club." Zeke wiped sweat from his brow with the back of his hand. "True that." "He was only a first-level zombie, and I just got owned. I'm supposed to be the ninja." He stepped onto the trail and took a practice swing with the club. "I'm no good with this thing. That's why we've got to get into the mall." "What's the mall got to do with you being a shitty zombie killer?" "Jerome's." "Jerome's?" Josh said. "The comic store?" "Dude, what are you going to do? Hit them over the head with the latest Spider-Man comic?" Zeke smiled. "They've got a katana." Josh scoffed. "You mean those fake swords and stuff hanging on the wall?" "They're just for decoration." "Doesn't matter." Zeke brushed off his pants. "I've had a look at that katana before. Got a chance to handle it. It's not perfect, but it's metal and has a decent balance. I'll kick a lot more undead ass with that than with this stupid golf club. But those things aren't even sharp. It will be once I bring it to that knife shop by the food court." "I knew we should have gone to Elmendorf Air Force Base," Josh said. "We'd be on a plane out of here by now." Zeke shook his head. "Don't you ever watch zombie movies? The base is always a death trap, and the mall isn't. Didn't you see Dawn of the Dead? Come here." Zeke pushed through the bushes and parted them, giving them an unobstructed view of the mall. Josh knelt beside him. Zeke pointed at a late-model pickup in the parking lot at the bottom of the embankment. "Once it gets darker, we slip behind that. Then, if we keep low, we'll have cover behind the cars and trucks far enough to get us to those." He swung his finger to point at several large RVs parked in the middle of the lot. A vinyl banner with the picture of a smiling, bearded man in a parka rustled in the breeze. "Looks like Sourdough Jim was having a sale," Josh said. "Good thing for us," Zeke said. "They'll get us halfway to the door without being seen. Then all we have to do is duck behind those Army recruiter vehicles. They'll give us cover up to 20 yards from the door." Josh frowned. "And then?" "And then we run our asses off." Chapter 2. Hours later, after the sky had turned a deep twilight blue, Zeke bumped fists with Josh and slipped down the embankment and behind the truck. Josh rumbled down the hill and pulled up next to him. He was already panting like he'd run a mile. Zeke rolled his eyes. Too many pizzas and energy drinks. Zeke had memorized the layout before it got dark. Problem was the zombies moved around, so he could only count on the positions of the vehicles to be where he remembered. "Follow me," he whispered. He crept to the other end of the truck and peered ahead. Two dark silhouettes swayed back and forth a few yards away. Cupping his hand to Josh's ear, he whispered, "Two ahead. We have to hit them quick before they can call out. You take the one on the left. I've got the one on the right." "Okay." Zeke crept from behind the truck, his steps slow and deliberate. Gravel crunched beneath Josh's boots, and Zeke cursed silently under his breath. The silhouettes froze, low growls coming from their direction. "Now!" Club raised high above his head, Zeke lunged at the figure on the right. He brought it down hard, making contact with a dull thud. A grunt echoed in the twilight, and the figure was gone. The other zombie's growl grew louder as Josh's pounding footsteps approached. Barely visible in the dim light, it tilted its head back. "It's going to scream." Josh swung and hit it somewhere below the head, knocking it back but not down. Zeke took a wild swing and missed. A Josh-sized shadow rammed into the zombie, driving it to the ground and out of sight. "Josh?" Zeke whispered. A dark outline rose, stumbling. Zeke reared back with the club like a batter about to hit a homer. The outline stumbled toward him. "Josh, is that you?" "I'm down here," Josh said from somewhere to the left. Zeke exhaled and let his swing follow through until he planted the club in the zombie's skull with a sickening thump. Pulse pounding in his ears, Zeke listened for any sign other zombies had been alerted. There was nothing besides Josh's heavy breathing and the pounding of his own heartbeat. "Are you okay?" he whispered. "Yeah." The large outlines of the motorhomes lay ahead. "Can't tell how far. This darkness is throwing me off. We need to keep moving." He reached out, fumbling for Josh. He brushed something. Josh let out a small eep. "Is that you?" "Relax. Give me your hand and get your butt up." Josh grasped Zeke's outstretched hand and was back on his feet in seconds. Zeke turned back toward the mall. "Nice and slow. Let's get to those motorhomes." He took a step and hesitated. Josh's boot crunched, and Zeke gritted his teeth. Sounds like a herd of elephants. Zeke paused every 30 seconds, listened, and continued when he heard nothing. Minutes after starting, he reached out and touched the smooth metal surface of one of the RVs. He leaned against it and tried to slow his racing heart. Still a long way to go. Josh's heavy breathing came from Zeke's left. "Dude, we're kicking it." "To the end of the RVs," Zeke said, "and we check out the area." Josh patted him on the back, and Zeke led him past the shadow of one hulking RV and then another. A screech split the night ahead of them. Zeke ducked and brought his golf club above his head as a chorus of answering screeches came from all directions. They couldn't have seen us, could they? A stampede headed our way? We're right between them and wherever they're going. He darted to the next RV. "Follow me." Screaming and yelling came from the direction of the mall as Zeke wrenched the RV door open. He grabbed Josh by the collar, yanked him forward, and pushed him into the vehicle. Josh fell to the floor with a grunt. Zeke hopped in and closed the door. "Stay down!" He crawled to a curtained window on the mall side of the RV and peeked out. Several human figures sprinted toward a mall entrance. They broke into the light, and a zombie soared from the shadows and landed on the back of one of them, a tall woman. She grappled with the creature. She's trying to flip it off. An older man turned and stabbed the zombie in the side with a knife. Undeterred, the undead creature sank its teeth into the woman's neck and shook its head. Blood pumped over its face and sprayed the older man. The woman wailed and fell to her knees. 3 other humans, a middle-aged woman, a man, and a teenage girl, darted for the doors. The man reached them first and yanked on a handle, but it didn't open. The girl caught up with him as he tugged on another door handle. It, too, remained closed. He pounded the door with his fists, yelling for help. Zombies burst from the darkness and into the light at the entrance. The middle-aged woman pressed her back to the doors. She screamed. The man pushed her and the girl behind him and took a defensive stance. "Dude's toast," Josh said beside Zeke. Zeke swallowed. "That could have been us." "The freaking doors are locked." The girl buried her face into the man's side. "I can't watch this." As Zeke let the curtain fall, he glimpsed the older man on the ground with the woman he'd tried to save moments earlier, ripping open his abdomen, tearing out his innards, and gnawing on them. Zeke stumbled to the back of the RV and collapsed on a bed. The screams cut off in a gurgle, and Zeke lay quietly with a pillow over his ears until he fell asleep. Chapter 3. "Dude, wake up." Zeke jumped from the bed and fell to his knees, fumbling around. "Where's my club?" Josh held Zeke's club out. "You might want to chill a bit. They're all around us now." Zeke grabbed the club and leaned on it as he rose. A quick peek through the sunlit window proved Josh right. The closest zombie was at least 20 yards away, but there were more of them. Shit. He sat at the table, propped his elbows on the surface, and held his head in his hands. We're in a worse place now. What the hell do we do? Josh plopped down across from him, and the RV shook. Zeke shot him a warning glance. Josh put his hands up. "I know. Be quiet." Josh's stomach growled. "Starving, dude," he said. "We need to get into the mall and raid the food court." "Isn't there anything in here to eat?" Zeke asked. Josh held up a bowl of fruit. "Not unless you like the wax shit. I guess Sourdough Jim wasn't going to waste real food on displays." Zeke leaned back and ran a hand through the spiky hair on the right side of his head. "We can't even get back to where we started." "So we go to the mall," Josh said. "The one with the locked doors?" Zeke said. "Great plan." He leaned toward the window and pushed the curtain aside. The entry where the massacre went down the previous night had a huge dark stain on the concrete and down the stairs. No bodies littered the area. "Guess they're out looking for a meal now." Josh sighed. "Doesn't mean all the doors are locked." Zeke frowned. "I really need that katana. I can go out tonight and check them out." "Don't you mean we?" "No, I don't. You sound like a wounded orc stumbling around out there." "We've been best friends since high school," Zeke said. "I won't leave you behind, but I can't move like I need to if you're with me." Josh pursed his lips and lowered his eyes. "Okay." Zeke patted him on the shoulder. It'll be worth it. Can't wait to lop off my first zombie head with that katana. And I'll get to choose anything I want to eat at the food court, Josh said. Zeke smiled. That you will. Chapter 4. Hours later, Zeke crouched at the RV door. Sounds clear. Get ready to close the door after I'm out. Bump fists, Josh said. It took a few times in the darkness, but they connected. Zeke swallowed and steeled himself for his mission. I'll be back before you know it. Hurry up, dude, Josh said. I'm starving. Zeke pushed the door open and stepped to the pavement. The door snapped closed behind him. He sniffed the air. The damn zombies smelled like the worst fart you could imagine. He might not have been able to see them, but he had no problem hearing them, and he damn sure could smell them. He crept to the end of the line of RVs and searched the shadows between him and the mall. Best bet is to get to the wall, where I can melt into the shadows. Crouched over, he dashed to a line of vehicles several yards away. Rather than stop, he sprinted behind them and to the side of the mall. He threw his back against the wall and scanned the area. With the golf club ready for action, he strained to hear anything over the staccato beat of his pulse. The zombie's odor washed over him and keyed a memory. He flashed back to the day in high school when his tormentor, Brad Jenkins, twisted his arm behind his back and pushed him face first into a fresh pile of dog shit. The worst of it was everyone else laughed and recorded it on their phones. He thought he'd never smell anything as rank as that dog shit stuffed up his nostrils. Boy, was I wrong. A low growl came from his left, and he caught shuffling, unsteady footsteps heading his way. Zeke straightened and faced the threat. He tried to swallow, but his mouth was too dry. The stench and the shuffling came closer. Now. He swung the club and it hit nothing until it connected with the wall, making a sound as loud as a gunshot. Fucking missed. A screech rose several feet away, and Zeke took off like a shot in the opposite direction. Answering screeches came from the dark, dozens of them in all directions. He streaked past the doorway with the dark stain before it, and didn't stop. Bathed in the light for a few seconds, he kicked it up another gear when more zombies answered the call. Next door has to open, or I'm screwed. He burst into the light flooding from a set of double doors and raced up the steps. Grabbing the handle, he pulled, and the door didn't move. Pounding footsteps, ragged breathing, and ear-piercing screeches grew closer. Wrenching on the other door handle, Zeke nearly fell down the stairs as it snapped open. He managed to keep himself upright, darted into the mall, and slammed the door shut. Several snarling zombies crashed against it, their yellow eyes fixed on him. Screeches echoed across the mall's interior. Shit, there's some inside. Zeke frantically looked for an escape and noticed a windowless door that said, "Security personnel only." He jerked it open and ducked in. Monitors lined the walls, displaying different locations in the mall. They changed views every 15 seconds. Footsteps pounded outside the door amid growls and screeches. Seconds later, they disappeared back into the main mall. Zeke let out his breath and sank against the wall. Need to find a safer way around until I get the katana. No way I can fight them all off with a stupid golf club. He found a switch by the door and flipped it. Fluorescent light filled the cluttered room. Besides a scuffed metal desk and a swivel chair with pieces of duct tape holding one arm on, the small office was crammed with file cabinets and lockers. A solid teal door lay on the other side of the desk. Couldn't fit more than 2 people in this place. Zeke plopped onto the chair and leaned back, letting his breathing slow. An unopened can of soda sat on the desktop. He opened it and poured it down his throat. Despite its warmth, it was the best soda he'd ever had. Placing the can onto the desktop, Zeke burped. He slapped a hand over his mouth and waited for pounding at the door, but it didn't come. He watched the monitors flip through the cameras. The top row covered the upper floors, while the bottom displayed the cameras from the first floor. One of the bottom cameras changed to a view of Jerome's. Zeke stood and squinted at it. No zombies were visible, but the sliding doors to Jerome's stood open. Shit. Startled by his own voice, he eyed the door he'd entered. When nothing happened after a minute, he returned to the monitors. The way to Jerome's lay beyond the teal door. Zeke pressed an ear against it and closed his eyes. Don't hear a damn thing. He choked up on the golf club and unlocked the deadbolt with a clunk. Pausing, he licked his lips and took a deep breath. Wish I had an invisibility spell to cast. He reared the club back with one hand and turned the doorknob with the other. Jerking the door open, he jumped back, ready to swing. A dingy back room with shelves of boxes lay ahead. 10 feet away, another door stood ajar. One flickering light bulb gave the room the feeling of a carnival funhouse. Zeke padded through the room. Toe, heel. Toe, heel. He reached the open door and froze. Scrunching his nose, he nearly gagged. Something flew through the door, knocked him onto his back, and landed on his chest. Zeke jammed the club into the shadowy figure and pushed it off. He rolled away and scrambled to his feet. A dark-haired man in a bloodied cook's apron, about half Zeke's height and twice his age, rose to his feet. The zombie's yellow eyes practically glowed beneath an untrimmed unibrow. "Frankie," Zeke gasped. Frankie screeched and rushed Zeke, who took an off-balance swing and hit the zombie in the side. Zeke managed to sidestep it, but the damn thing was fast. He spun and swung at the same time, connecting with Frankie's jaw. A loud crack filled the room, and Frankie stumbled backward. "Sorry, man." Zeke stepped forward, bringing the club in an overhead swing with everything he had. The club embedded into the top of Frankie's head. Frankie went to his knees before falling forward. Chest heaving, Zeke watched for any movement. When Frankie remained still, Zeke lowered the club. Damn, he made the best pizza in town. He leaned out the doorway and smiled. Jerome's comic shop lay 20 yards away. He'd have to cross the food court, but no zombies were in sight. If I'm quick enough. He crouched and crept out the door. Rustling came from the middle of the mall. He watched, and a lady in a fast food uniform stumbled into view, her head lolling to one side. She swayed as she turned away from him and stumbled toward the other end of the mall. Zeke took a deep breath and readied himself to run. 1, 2, 3. He pushed off into a sprint, pumping his arms and keeping his eyes locked ahead. A screech came from somewhere close by on his right. Eyes on the prize, eyes on the prize. Like an Olympic hurdler, he sailed over the low rail that bordered the food court, then dodged an overturned chair. A chorus of screeches rose from several directions. Zeke's heart jumped into overdrive. He cleared the rail on the other side of the food court. Almost there. A figure appeared in his peripheral vision. He'd have to deal with at least one. Zeke reared the club back with one hand, never breaking stride. Coming in on his right, the zombie headed straight at him. When it neared, Zeke swung. The club glanced off its forehead, and it stumbled, but caught its balance and chased after him. Ducking into Jerome's, Zeke turned and flailed at the pursuing zombie with the club. The club's head slammed into the creature's eye, shattering the socket. It stumbled backward and fell. 4 more zombies closed in on the open doors of Jerome's. Zeke dropped the golf club and pushed the sliding doors closed. He locked the deadbolt as the undead slammed into the door. Several more joined those gathered at the door. Zeke ran to the rear of the store behind the display case, where the wall was covered with replica weapons like axes, swords, and clubs. He lifted a sheathed katana from a hook and slid the blade out. Beautiful. The light glinted off the metal as he admired it. The door shuddered. 20 zombies slammed their fists on the glass. Shit, better get out of sight. Zeke grabbed a ninja costume on display and ducked into the back room. He took several practice swings with the katana and smiled. Not perfect, but a hell of a lot better than a golf club. The pounding at the door had already tailed off. Zeke shed his clothes and pulled the ninja costume over his lanky body. Examining himself in a mirror, he shrugged. A bit baggy, but it's good camouflage for the shadowy areas. Besides, I'll get a better size from the store shelves later. Right now, I have some slicing and dicing to do. He strapped the sheathed katana to his back and pulled the black hood over his head. Time to kick some ass. Locating the breaker panel on the wall, he flipped them all. The room went dark. He cracked the backroom door open. The zombies still pounded on the door, but there were fewer of them. Slipping into the shadows of a costume rack, he watched them begin to trail away. Need to get back to Josh, but not until I hit the knife shop and sharpen this bad boy up. One zombie remained at the door and had its back turned to him. Zeke tightened his grip on the katana's hilt. Now's the time to test this thing out. He snuck toward the door. Toe, heel. Toe, heel. The zombie still faced away and no others were in sight. Painfully slow, Zeke eased the deadbolt open. He dug the fingers of one hand into the space between the doors and raised the katana over his head with the other. 1, 2, 3. He shoved the door open and brought the blade down on the back of the zombie's head. The impact vibrated up his arm and the zombie stumbled forward, then dropped to its knees. Zeke stepped into it and swung with both hands, striking the creature just above the ear. The zombie flopped forward and lay still. Ducking back into Jerome's, Zeke slid the door closed and scanned the mall. No screeches. He blew out a breath. Katana 1, zombies 0. When no undead attacked, he slipped out the door and hugged the wall. The knife shop lay only 3 doors down, around a corner. The way to the corner was clear, but who knew what was hidden beyond it? Zeke passed a perfume shop and an electronics store, then paused at the corner and peered around it. He smiled. Coast is clear and the doors open. Screeching from close behind spun him around. 2 zombies sprinted full tilt from several yards away. He'd never make it to the knife shop in time. He had to deal with them. Sensei's voice filled his mind. Still your thoughts. Focus on your opponents. Slow the fight. Make it flow at your speed. Zeke stepped back with one foot and raised the katana over his head in a Jodan stance. The closest zombie, a 20-something girl caked with makeup and with a chunk of flesh missing from her cheek, was only a few yards away. Zeke timed her pace and brought the katana down in a killing blow. The blade cracked her forehead, and she fell to the floor. Zeke turned, thrusting the blade behind him, where it went through a middle-aged woman's chest. She growled and clawed for him, but he'd already moved to the side. Sensei's voice echoed in his mind again. Move like you're in a ballet. The first zombie recovered, blood pouring down its face from the wound. Gotta get this thing sharpened. Zeke leapt and brought the sword around, striking it into the side of the girl's neck with a crack. Normally a beheading move, it broke her neck, causing her head to loll to the side. The middle-aged woman crouched and sprung at Zeke. He ducked and brought the hilt around, smashing it into the creature's temple as it flew by. The zombie crashed into a display of big-screen TVs. Zeke swung the sword with all his strength and caught the tilted head of the girl on the temple with a satisfying crack. She slumped to the floor and lay still. He spun to face the other zombie, but it lay in an unmoving heap amid the smashed TVs. Screeches rose in the mall, echoing off the walls and making it impossible to tell what direction they came from. Zeke dashed into the knife shop and closed the doors. The old man that owned the shop had been sharpening knives for years on his backroom workbench. Zeke had worked for him for a summer, learning how to sharpen knives and swords. He turned on the backroom light and wiped the blood off the weapon. Propping the blade on a wood block, he took a file and began shaping the edge with even, measured strokes. Minutes later, he examined the surface. With a satisfied grunt, he applied a thin film of oil on a whetstone and polished the edge to a wicked sheen. He turned the blade back and forth, letting the light catch it. Now I can do some serious damage. The katana went into the sheath strapped to his back, and he turned off the lights. Let's take it on a test run. Can't wait to behead my first zombie with a proper katana. He crouched behind the glass door and waited, scanning the mall through the eye slit in his ninja hood. Minutes later, movement several yards away caught his attention. A large, lumbering shadow wandered aimlessly. Zeke stepped out of the doorway and faced the shadow in a Kogasumi no Kamae stance. "Over here!" he yelled. A screech echoed off the walls, and the large shadow streaked toward Zeke. "Slow your mind." He timed his stroke and swung before the zombie entered the light. In a blur, Zeke completed his stroke and stepped out of the creature's path. Its head flew into the darkness while the body flopped onto its stomach and slid into the knife shop's door. Zeke approached the body. "Got you!" He knelt and pushed it over, revealing a bloodied T-shirt with text across the chest. He mouthed the words as he read them. "Nerds are sexy." This has been Dead Run, a zombie uprising story. Written by M.A. Robbins. Copyright 2019-2023 by M.A. Robbins. Production copyright 2025 by M.A. Robbins. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to receive alerts about new audiobooks. The more subscribers, the more books will be produced.